They thought I was the family's financial liability, but for 3 years, I was secretly running the multi-million-dollar trust that paid all their bills. This is my story of high society hypocrisy, hidden power, and ultimate revenge. Hey everyone, welcome to Wealth Secrets Uncovered. I share gripping real-life stories of high society power struggles, hidden fortunes, and personal transformation. Hit subscribe for more insider stories like this one. The first sign that something was off came when my mother texted me in all caps, "Family Summit, mandatory attendance." In our family, that kind of language usually meant someone had died or someone had crashed a Mercedes. But when I walked into the Whitaker Estate's oak-paneled study that late afternoon, no one looked grief-stricken, just tense. Golden light slanted through the tall windows, hitting shelves lined with leather-bound law tomes and the oil portraits of our ancestors, all stern-faced men in cravats who'd built the Whitaker name into a dynasty of shipping, banking, and old money philanthropy. The place smelled faintly of beeswax polish and my father's favorite single malt. My brother Michael was already there, sprawled on one of the leather chairs like a CEO on magazine day. He'd flown in from London that morning and still wore the three-piece suit from his high-stakes negotiations. His cuff links gleamed. My sister Rachel perched at the edge of her chair, flicking through her phone between glances at her Cartier watch. She had a blowout so perfect it looked like it belonged on TV. And then there was me, Emily Whitaker, the family's odd one out, padding into the room in jeans and a cashmere sweater, my hair in a bun. At 28, I ran a nonprofit literacy program in DC instead of climbing the corporate ladder. That choice had earned me a reputation among my relatives as idealistic at best, financially reckless at worst. Finally, Mom said as I sat down at the far end of the long table. She was in a silk blouse the color of champagne, her diamond tennis bracelet flashing as she shuffled a stack of spreadsheets. Dad cleared his throat in the way he always did before a pronouncement. "We're here," he said gravely, "to talk about fiscal discipline and our family's future." My stomach sank. I'd been through enough Whitaker family summits to know how they worked. Lots of high-minded talk about legacy, then a new set of rules no one but me seemed to follow. Mom spread out the papers like a dealer laying down cards. "Our support costs are unsustainable. The family trust is being drained." Michael leaned forward, elbows on the table, the picture of a man who'd read every page. "The numbers don't lie," he said smoothly. "Our discretionary distributions have doubled in 5 years. We can't keep subsidizing the same behavior." Rachel's eyes flicked toward me like a dagger. "Some people," she said sweetly, "need to take responsibility for their own choices." I pressed my palms together under the table. My nonprofit salary, 45 grand a year, made me an easy target. They thought I was the dependent. They thought wrong. Dad slid another document toward Mom. "The emergency fund is being used for everything from car repairs to vacations. That stops now. We're instituting accountability." Mom's gaze hardened. "Certain family members have grown far too comfortable treating our resources like a personal cushion instead of building true independence." The accusation hung in the air like expensive perfume. Michael turned to me with that patronizing calm only older brothers can master. Your nonprofit work is admirable in theory, but you're nearly 30. You need a career that supports an adult lifestyle." Rachel chimed in without looking up from her phone. "And the constant requests for help have to end. It's enabling." Inside, I almost laughed at the irony. On the surface, I nodded, picking at my salad as if their words didn't sting. In reality, my phone in my lap was buzzing with a notification from Whitman Trust Management. "Monthly allowance approvals required. Michael Whitaker, $15,000. Rachel Whitaker, $12,000. Eleanor Whitaker, $8,000. Charles Whitaker, $18,000. Please confirm by 5 p.m. They had no idea that for the past 3 years, the struggling little sister they were lecturing had been signing off on their lifestyle. Mom snapped her folder shut. "Effective immediately. No more aid for non-emergencies. No rent subsidies, no car repairs, no discretionary support. It's time to sink or swim like every other adult." I could almost hear Grandfather Whitaker chuckling from his portrait above the fireplace. Dad adjusted his glasses with a show of authority. From now on, every distribution from the trust will require documented need and an approved budget. No more automatic monthly allowances. "We're not your personal ATM anymore," Mom declared, her voice sharp with the conviction of someone delivering tough love. I let my fork rest on the plate and looked at them one by one. Michael with his imported cufflinks, Rachel with her manicured nails, Dad with his practiced gravitas. My phone buzzed again. The approval deadline was 20 minutes away. "Do you have anything to say about these new financial terms?" Dad asked, expecting my grateful nod. I gave a faint smile. "Not yet." Michael smirked, thinking he'd won. Rachel whispered something to him behind her hand. Dad began explaining their new strategic plan for my financial independence. While they talked, I scrolled to the Trust app on my phone and tapped deny for all 4 requests. One after another, green checkmarks flipped to red. Their voices faded into background noise as my heart thudded. For 3 years, I'd played the quiet administrator, the dutiful nonprofit worker. Grandfather's trust had been explicit. Control would pass to the youngest child at 25 if they proved both financial expertise and dedication to charitable causes. While my siblings were racking up bills, I was earning my financial planning certification at night, learning trust law, and quietly steering the family portfolio to 18% annual returns. Now, at last, the mask could come off. The antique clock on the mantel ticked toward 5 o'clock. My parents wrapped up their speech, looking satisfied. Rachel smoothed her hair. Michael checked his phone. A knock came at the door. "Come in," Dad said, assuming it was staff. A poised woman in a navy suit entered, holding a leather briefcase. "Miss Whitaker," she said to me, "I'm Patricia Williams from Whitman Trust Management. I'm sorry to intrude, but we need your immediate signature on some urgent quarterly trust documents." Every head at the table turned. Dad stood, bristling. "I handle all trust matters for this family. Any documents should come to me." Patricia blinked. "I'm afraid there's a misunderstanding, Mr. Whitaker. Emily has been the primary trustee and financial overseer of the family trust since her 25th birthday. All distribution decisions and account management fall under her authority." Silence. Even the clock seemed to stop. "That's impossible," Michael said weakly. "Emily works for a nonprofit. She doesn't have the expertise to manage a trust." Patricia opened her briefcase and produced official documents with embossed seals. In fact, Miss Whitaker earned her financial planning certification and trust administration credentials 3 years ago. She's been managing the Whitaker family trust portfolio with great success since then. Mom's face drained of color. "What family trust portfolio?" Patricia consulted her papers. The Whitaker Family Trust, established by her late father's estate, is currently valued at approximately $23.7 million, providing monthly distributions to all family members at the trustee's discretion. I watched their faces morph from confusion to horror. "The monthly allowances you all receive," I said softly, "come from the trust." Rachel's usual confidence cracked. "We would have been informed about something this significant." Patricia handed Dad a certified copy. The trust stipulated that control would pass to the youngest child at 25 with the expectation that they'd support family members at their discretion. Dad's hands trembled as he scanned the legal text. "This says Emily Whitaker has been the sole trustee with full discretionary authority for the past 3 years." I nodded. "I've been overseeing all your allowances, investments, and distributions while you assumed I was scraping by on my nonprofit salary." My phone rang, displaying the bank's private number. "Excuse me," I said, answering while holding eye contact with my family. "Miss Whitaker," said the voice on the line. "This is David Chin from First National Private Banking. We've received your denial for this month's family allowances. Should we place holds on the associated accounts?" "Yes," I said calmly. "Proceed with the holds until further notice." "All automatic transfers are now suspended pending a review," he confirmed. I hung up and faced my family's stunned expressions. That was the bank confirming your monthly allowances have been paused. For a heartbeat after I hung up, nobody moved. It was as if the Whitaker study had been flash frozen. Dad's knuckles white around the edge of the table, Mom's manicured fingers hovering above her spreadsheets, Michael's cuff links glinting as he gripped his phone, Rachel's mascara-lined eyes darting from me to Patricia and back again. The antique clock resumed its tick-tick-tick. Outside, the last of the late afternoon sun caught the glass of the conservatory, throwing jagged beams across the oak table like spotlights. If Grandfather Whitaker could see the scene, I thought, he'd probably pour himself another bourbon and grin. "Don't understand," Mom finally stammered. "Emily, what are you talking about? How can you?" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Patricia, ever the professional, set a slim folder in front of me. "These are the quarterly reports, Miss Whitaker. Portfolio performance, distribution approvals, and updated beneficiary schedules." Dad's voice rose, that familiar baritone of the boardroom. "There's been some mistake. I've managed this family's finances for 30 years. Everything runs through me." I turned the folder so the embossed seal faced them. "Everything ran through Grandfather. When he died, the trust was designed to bypass you and pass directly to the youngest child at 25, on one condition: proven financial expertise and commitment to charitable work. I qualified 3 years ago. That's why Patricia is here for my signature, not yours." Michael barked a laugh that sounded more like a cough. "You expect us to believe you've been sitting on 20+ million while playing social worker?" I kept my tone even. "It's actually 23.7 million at last close. And I'm not a social worker. I'm a certified financial planner and trust administrator. Night classes, exams, licenses. All while you assumed I was broke." Rachel clutched her designer bag like a life raft. "But our allowances, you've been signing off on them?" "All of them," I said. "Every rent payment, every credit card bill, every business development dinner you've expensed, Michael. Every spa package and boutique shopping spree, Rachel. Mom's discretionary fund. Dad's household budget. You've been lecturing the one person keeping the lights on." Patricia added, "Miss Whitaker has grown the trust at an average of 18% annually, diversified into sustainable investments, and met all IRS compliance standards. It's been a model of prudent management." Mom's face went pale. "What about the estate? This house?" She looked around as if seeing the Whitaker study for the first time. "The estate is a trust asset," Patricia said gently. "All maintenance, taxes, and staff salaries are paid from trust distributions at the trustee's discretion." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the years of secrecy fall away like a heavy coat. "You wanted to cut me off today to teach me fiscal discipline. But the truth is, you've been living off my discretion for 3 years." Dad slammed his palm on the table. "That's absurd. Even if this paperwork is real, I built this wealth. My decisions kept us afloat through 3 recessions." "No," I said quietly. "Grandfather built it. He chose who would control it. And he chose me." Michael's phone chimed again. I could see the color drain from his face as he scrolled. "My Amex, my vendor payments, everything's declining." He looked up at me, panic edging his voice. "Emily, I have deals in motion. This will ruin me." Rachel was frantically tapping at her banking app. "My cards are frozen. My stylist, my trainer, my weekend plans, everything's bouncing." "You can't just—" "That's what happens when automatic payments are suspended," I said, still calm. "Exactly what you were about to do to me." Patricia's tablet pinged. She glanced at it. "Michael Whitaker receives $15,000 monthly for business and living expenses. Rachel receives $12,000. Mrs. Eleanor Whitaker receives $8,000 for discretionary spending, and Mr. Charles Whitaker receives $18,000 for household costs. All are currently on hold pending trustee review." Mom whispered, "Monthly allowances," as if tasting the words for the first time. Dad stood, yanking out his phone. "I'll call our banker. We'll straighten this out." He strode toward the window, muttering into the line, "Get me David Chin immediately." "That won't help," I said. "David just spoke to me. The holds are already in place." Patricia slid another paper across the table. "Miss Whitaker, we'll also need to review the real estate portfolio. The family properties, including this estate, require tax and maintenance payments next month." I put the call from Portfolio Management on speaker. Jennifer Walsh from Portfolio Management, came the voice. Do we continue covering property taxes and maintenance for the family properties? I looked around the study at the portraits of dead Whitakers who'd watched generations rise and fall. Jennifer, what happens if we stop? Property tax defaults within 60 days, she said crisply. Insurance lapses. Deferred maintenance. Potential foreclosure on leveraged assets. Mom swayed slightly in her chair. Our home? Owned by the trust, Patricia confirmed. Miss Whitaker has been covering all household expenses for 3 years. Michael's business phone began to ring, one call after another, vendors, clients, partners discovering his funding was frozen. He silenced it with a trembling thumb. I muted the speaker. Jennifer, hold all property-related payments pending my budget review. Understood, she said. All staff and vendors will be notified that their positions are under review. Rachel's voice cracked. Emily, you can't fire the staff. Mom depends on them. This house needs constant upkeep. The same way I depended on family support, I said softly, until 15 minutes ago. What did Mom say? Time to sink or swim like every other adult. Dad turned from the window, his phone still pressed to his ear, but his authority evaporated. Emily, please. We can sort this out. We're family. I met his gaze. Exactly. And as family, I've supported you all for 3 years without complaint or recognition, until today, when you tried to cut me off from support you never controlled. Patricia handed me a detailed financial report. The trust has thrived under your management, Miss Whitaker. 18% annual returns, diversified holdings, sustainable distribution policies. Sustainable until now, I murmured. The model assumed family unity and mutual respect. Those assumptions may need adjusting. The oak furniture and ancestral portraits seemed to lean in as the balance of power shifted. For years, I'd played the dutiful youngest child. Now, with one phone call and a leather folder, the hierarchy had flipped. They were no longer my benefactors. They were my beneficiaries. I closed the folder and slid it back to Patricia. Send me revised drafts tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll issue new allowance schedules. Michael's voice was hoarse. What does that mean? It means, I said, that if you want continued support, there will be budgets, reporting, and oversight, exactly what you demanded of me. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. You're treating us like children. I'm treating you like adults who need to learn financial responsibility, I said. Exactly what you said I needed. Dad dropped into his chair, staring at the trust documents with hollow eyes. And the estate? Our home? It will be maintained as long as beneficiaries show appreciation and maintain respectful relationships, I replied. Hostile actions toward the trustee could trigger housing allowance reviews. Mom reached across the table, her diamond bracelet glinting. Emily, we're sorry. We didn't know. Now you do, I said gently. And now we'll have formal agreements reflecting the true financial dynamics, not assumptions about who supports whom. Patricia gathered her papers. We'll prepare the revised documents for signature, Miss Whitaker. As she snapped her briefcase shut, the room seemed smaller, the portraits darker, the air heavier with realization. My siblings sat in stunned silence, scrolling through apps that no longer worked. My parents stared at me as if I'd turned into someone they didn't recognize. Maybe I had, or maybe, for the first time, they were seeing the real me. Tomorrow, they'd get their new allowances. Tomorrow, mandatory financial counseling will begin. Tomorrow, the Whitaker family would start living within budgets they'd never had to consider. For tonight, though, I simply rose from my chair, feeling my heartbeat slow as the last light faded from the windows. I wasn't the black sheep anymore. I was the shepherd. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the leaded glass of my apartment like a promise. For the first time in years, I wasn't waking up under the weight of a secret. The entire Whitaker clan now knew the truth. I wasn't their dependent. I was their trustee. And today I had to prove it wasn't a bluff. I brewed my own coffee instead of having the estate staff deliver it. The simple ritual steadied me. My phone buzzed with a dozen unread texts: Michael, Rachel, Dad, Mom. All variations of call me, we need to talk, this can't happen. Patricius was the only calm one. Drafts ready for review. We'll send a secure link. By the time Patricia arrived at my downtown office suite, a modest, sunlit co-working space I'd leased quietly months ago, I'd already skimmed the new trust documents. They laid out everything I'd asked for last night: revised allowances tied to budgets, mandatory financial education for beneficiaries, and a clear separation between the trust's charitable arm and family distributions. "Morning, Miss Whitaker," Patricia said as she set her leather case on the desk. "Shall we go over the rollout plan?" "Emily," I corrected automatically. "If I'm going to lead this family, it has to be as me, not some caricature of grandfather." She smiled faintly. "Very well, Emily. Here's how I suggest you handle it." We worked through the documents line by line. Under the new system, Dad's household budget became a capped facilities allowance tied to actual property expenses. Michael's business development fund became a reimbursable account with monthly reporting. Rachel's lifestyle stipend became an education and wellness grant she could use for approved programs, not impulse shopping. Even Mom's discretionary fund was recast as a heritage preservation stipend tied to family archives and philanthropy. Each line item included benchmarks. If they met financial literacy goals within 6 months, allowances could increase. If they refused, distributions would decrease automatically. Patricia closed her folder. "They'll see this as punishment," she warned. "You'll have to frame it as empowerment." I thought of the last decade of being written off as the youngest, the dreamer, the one who couldn't handle real money. Of my father's lectures about self-reliance, my brother's mockery, my sister's condescension. "I'm done asking for permission," I said. "But I'll offer them a choice: grow up or lose access." At noon, I drove out to the estate for the scheduled family meeting. The driveway looked the same: brick pavers, sculpted hedges, but the atmosphere was different. The staff greeted me like a dignitary instead of the overlooked youngest child. Inside, my parents and siblings sat in the conservatory, faces drawn, phones face down. I stayed standing, papers in hand. "Thank you for coming. This won't take long." Dad straightened. "Emily, before you start." I held up a hand. "This is not a debate. This is a presentation of the new structure." Their eyes flicked to Patricia, who nodded. "Everything Emily's about to outline is legally within her authority as trustee." I laid out the new allowances one by one, explaining the benchmarks and conditions. Michael's jaw tightened with each bullet point. Rachel's hands fluttered nervously at her throat. Mom stared at the floor. Dad finally spoke. "This is humiliating. We're adults. We don't need a nanny." "You're right," I said evenly. "Adults manage money responsibly. That's all I'm asking you to do." Michael's voice cracked. "You can't starve my business. I have employees." "You've been funneling trust money into speculative deals without oversight," I replied. "Going forward, you'll submit proposals like any entrepreneur seeking investment. If the numbers work, you'll get funding. If not, you won't. That's how the real world works." Rachel's eyes brimmed. "And my stipend? You're cutting me off." "I'm giving you a path," I said. "You can use your grant for finishing your MBA, starting a certified nonprofit, or health and wellness programs. No more unlimited designer sprees on the trust's dime." Mom looked up, finally. "And me?" "You'll oversee the family's historical archives and philanthropic events," I said gently. "You've always loved curating grandfather's legacy. Now you'll be funded to do it properly." Dad's hands gripped the chair arms. "And if we refuse?" "Then distributions stop automatically," I said. "The trust can maintain the estate without you living here. It can even rent it out for events to cover costs." The silence after that was long and jagged. A hawk circled above the glass roof. Its shadow passed over us like an omen. Finally, Michael slumped back. "Fine. Send me the forms." Rachel sniffled. "I guess I'll look at programs." Mom's eyes were wet but calm. "We treated you like a child, Emily. Maybe this is what we need." Dad exhaled slowly. "Your grandfather would be proud. He always said wealth without discipline is a curse." Something unknotted in my chest. "I'm not here to punish you," I said softly. I'm here to keep grandfather's legacy from becoming exactly that. Patricia distributed signature pages. One by one, they signed. When Dad passed me the final document, his hand brushed mine. You've grown up, he said quietly.
No, I said.
I just stopped hiding. Over the next few weeks, the transformation was slow but real. Michael's flashy Instagram deals disappeared. He started sending me genuine business plans. Rachel enrolled in a nonprofit management program in Boston and posted about her volunteer work instead of handbags. Mom curated an exhibition of grandfather's war-era diaries at the local museum, drawing praise from the Historical Society. Even Dad began mentoring startups at a business incubator instead of barking orders at home. I moved the trust's headquarters to my downtown office, hired 2 junior analysts from underrepresented backgrounds, and launched the Whitaker Foundation for Financial Literacy, offering free workshops to young adults who'd never seen a balance sheet. It felt like the opposite of the secret life I'd lived: transparent, purposeful, public. One evening, after a day of meetings, Patricia handed me a slim envelope.
For you, she said.
Inside was a note from Dad. Emily, we may never deserve your patience, but we're starting to understand it. Dinner at the estate? No agenda, just family. I stared at the handwriting for a long time. The invitation wasn't just about food. It was an acknowledgement. An opening. That week, I drove back to the estate. The staff was still there, but the atmosphere had shifted. Less performative, more human. In the dining room, the long mahogany table was set simply, without the usual silver parade. My siblings were already seated. Michael raised a glass of iced tea. To our new trustee, he said sheepishly. Rachel giggled. Morlito, our new grown-up selves. Dad carved the roast himself. Mom passed around homemade rolls. Conversation drifted from business to travel to memories of grandfather teaching us to fish at the lake house. For the first time in years, it felt like family, not a board meeting. Later, walking alone in the garden, I thought about the girl I'd been, the one hiding night classes, the one letting herself be scolded for irresponsibility while secretly paying everyone's bills. She was gone. In her place was someone who'd executed the ultimate escape, not from the family, but from the role they'd assigned her. I pulled out my phone and drafted a post for the Whitaker Foundation's new website. Welcome to the Whitaker Foundation. I'm Emily Whitaker, and this is our journey from secrecy and dependence to transparency and empowerment. If you've ever felt trapped by someone else's narrative, a boss, a family, a system, you can escape too. Here's how we did it. I hit publish. The night air smelled of honeysuckle and possibility. For the first time, the estate didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a launch pad. I whispered into the dark, not to my family, but to myself. Sink or swim. I've built the whole ocean now. Thanks for watching Wealth Secrets Uncovered. If you enjoyed this story, hit like and subscribe for more true tales of hidden fortunes, power shifts, and high society secrets.